This is an Age of Charlemagne battle between Panda Warrior and Duck. I think it's quite cool to be able to see what other people do with their armies and their setups, because I like to play a certain way, other people might like to play another way. And I learned quite a lot by watching other people's battles. So here we have a line of Royal Thanes. Let's see, Thanes in the center. Looks like we have 4 Thanes, Royal Thanes on the flanks. Royal Thanes having the 50 melee damage swords. Then we have Horsemen. Decent melee cavalry. Medium melee cavalry. Some Fird spearmen on the flanks together with 4 select archers. So archers used to be chosen or picked, now they are select. Royal companions in the center. 2 more cav units here. So a fairly simple setup. Sword, mainline, archers, cavalry and spears on the flanks. Very simple, very basic. For Panda Warrior, we have axes, and that doesn't, or I mean say axes and axes. And that doesn't bode well for the sword line, I have to say. So we have a Sayax warrior on each flank. Then we have 3 axe warriors in the center. We have an axe warrior on the flank here. Sayax warriors behind the cavalry. These Saxon cavalry units, they are medium skirmish cav. They have high missile damage, but they only have 2 ammunition. So they need to be managed really well in order to be effective. Then we have archers, 3 cheap archers. We have a war dog unit in the forest here, interesting. And 3 more Saxon cavalry out on the flanks. The war dogs are currently hidden. They obviously want to go and cause havoc to the skirmishers here, the select archers. And war dogs are still shit. You'll see why in a few tests, but they are... the only way war dogs can work is if they are able to surprise the enemy. And here we go. Looks like the trap is sprung. It looks like they might be able to surprise these select archers here. Because they are using flaming shots against the archers, and that's not very effective. Getting charged by the Warhounds have a bonus, and this is how you lose a lot of units against Warhounds. A quick cav charge might have done it, but pulling away the select archers from the dogs, that's going to lose you an archer unit. Now, the cavalry might have been kept behind here because they didn't want to take fire from these archers, but losing that select archer unit and having the war dogs be able to run into the lines like this is not a good start for Duck. And he's still using flaming shots. So now he sees the dogs. He might not even have seen the dogs. Now he sees the dogs, attacks them with cavalry, and dogs getting attacked by cavalry are going to die very, very quickly. But the Warhounds, 108 kills. Quite nice. They're even doing some damage to the spears here, but they're running through and running after the select archers. So the dogs could actually have been called back there. And in the center now, turning off flaming shot and just trading a bit with these cheap archers. Somewhat protected by the forest here are these archers. Some of these archers also have the luxury of protection, but the Saxon cavalry here has been skirmishing against the horsemen and manages to drop them quite a lot, actually. And the Saxon cavalry really needs to do damage before charging in, because they are not that good in melee against cavalry. So using the Warhounds here to just tie down multiple units. In the forest, we're getting an engagement. The Sayax warriors attacking the cavalry while firing with the Saxon cavalry. So these horsemen, unsupported, are getting absolutely hammered here. The spears move into support. They are getting charged by cavalry. So let's see how well the Fird spearmen are able to do. They shouldn't do too well against the Sayax warriors here. And let's see, nothing else happening. A general push in the center. But this engagement is a perfect engagement for the Sayax, where they're able to both do damage to spears and swords. And here come the axe warriors in to seal the deal. So this engagement, here we have Saxon cavalry coming in for a rear charge against the Fird spearmen. And the rear charge did some damage. Also did some damage to the horsemen here. So nicely done with the cavalry. More cavalry engagements going on over here. But it's the horsemen getting the charge on the Saxon cavalry. So nice charges here with the horsemen. But the Saxon cavalry runs around and throws precursors into the back of these horsemen. So they are losing a lot of men that way. The Saxon cavalry is also occupying a small hill, which makes things a lot easier for them. Over here the royal companions are being sent in, and the royal companions should start tipping the balance in favor of the Thanes and the royal Thanes, but spears have been lost, cavalry has been lost. And in the center, very nicely done with the Saxon cavalry, the medium skirmishers, going in, causing damage to the Thanes, causing damage to the select archers. On the flanks here, the Saxon cavalry, due to being managed well and being in a good position, they have been able to do some damage here to the horsemen. The royal Thanes fighting up against Sayax warriors. The Sayax warriors are actually winning here. They have bonus versus infantry and high armor penetrating. So now finally the Axe warriors and the Sayax warriors are starting to lose. They were overwhelmed by a multitude of enemy units. But over here on the flanks, things are going Westphalia's way. The Axe warriors able to support against spears, and the Saxon cavalry about to bite the dust here. The spears are coming back from routing. Here the royal Thanes are fighting downhill against Sayax warriors, so the royal Thanes are winning that one decisively. But there are more units moving into support, and the Saxon cavalry being used very aggressively here against the select archers. A lot of units in support here available for the late game. So the pace, I'm sure it has something to do with the map as well, but the pace of Age of Charlemagne is slower and, in my opinion, better than it is in base Attila. Now the Axe warriors, 37 charge bonus, getting a charge here on the Thanes. The Thanes are in shield wall, so that should help them a bit. They only have a 16 charge bonus, but the Axes have such a high charge bonus, and the Thanes had taken prior damage, so the Thanes are getting destroyed here. But it allows the royal Thanes to move in. Here come the Saxon cavalry, but the unit was already broken. But they do disrupt the royal Thanes a bit here before they move in against the Axe warriors. So a few Saxon cavalry units running around. Looks like the horsemen are going to get the charge here on this Saxon cav. Running through the unit. Interesting. And in this blob, the Thanes are getting overwhelmed by axes and by cavalry. Getting the charge in with the Axe warriors, so important on the royal Thanes. Brace has been activated, increasing the attack against cavalry. But they are up against a multitude of Axe units here, and that's just not a good time for a sword unit to be surrounded by axes. The Thanes here also fighting against axes and the Saxon cav. Here come the Sayax warriors. Sayax warriors being used very well for their preferred role as supporting infantry. So send in the high charge axes, support with Sayax warriors, and you're going to do a lot of damage, both on the charge and in extended melee. Kiting away in the center with Axe warriors, Thanes, royal Thanes, and feared spearmen. The archers firing point blank into the feared spears. Axe warriors broke. And over here as well, the Axe warriors broke. They do not have the ability to... They need to break a unit. They don't like to stand and trade for an extended period of time. Nicely done. Rear charge here into the feared spearmen. The Thanes charging in towards the skirmishers. And the Saxon cavalry should be able to deal with them. And now the royal companions are holding very well here. Thanes getting a nice rear charge. And quite a few of the Westphalia units are running off the field now, or are very depleted. Decent kills on the cheap archers. Saxon Cav charging into the Thanes. Should be able to continue straight into the archers, should they so choose. The Royal Companions are tanking out a lot of kills, but they are going to be in trouble against Sayax warriors and Axe warriors. Oh yeah, the feared spearmen are dead, losing decisively against the Hearthguard. Hearthguard having a very high charge bonus for being a sword unit. Exceptional, in fact. Very, very good unit, the Hearthguard. But here the Noble Javelin men, 100 kills. They've been able to fire into the back of the Royal Thanes. And that's a very good use for them. They have a very low... they have a very short Sayax, so they have a nice charge bonus, but very low melee attack. Should be able to do some damage when rear charging, though. These Royal Thanes are fucked. The Royal Companions here, they're tanking out the kills. But they, I mean, fighting up against both Sayax and Axe warriors, it's not going to be that easy for them. So, balance of power is starting to make itself felt. A valiant defeat there. So, a valiant defeat on the Kingdom of Mercia. And this was a very interesting battle, I think, because here we have a main line of Sayax and Axes versus a main line of swords. So there are, let's see, 4, 6, 7 swords here, and there are 3 Sayaxes, 1 sword, and 5 Axes here. Very high charge, these Axe warriors, very fragile. But so it's essential to not get charged by horsemen on your Sayax and Axe warriors. The dogs were used very well to remove a dangerous archer unit. The Saxon cavalry was used well. They need to be micromanaged really well since they only have 2 ammunition. But they were able to do crucial damage here to the horsemen and then do well in the follow-up. So the Royal Thanes do well, but they're not really cost effective against these relatively cheap axe units. And this was a quite interesting army. It has no real sturdy melee cavalry. It has very high charge infantry, but what this army lacks is staying power. This army has a lot of staying power, but once it gets hit by repeated charges by axe warriors and the Sayax come into support, and these guys, the Saxon cavalry, is used very aggressively. Look at the kills on the skirmishers. Skirmishers completely neutralized, going for rear charges and stuff. Then it's very difficult here, because once the archers were routed off the field, and once the cav engagement started going against the Kingdom of Mercia here, because the cavalry was supported by spears, Westphalia could shine. And I think that's one of the things, that spears have a place on the battlefields of Charlemagne. However, if you choose to support your cavalry with high charge infantry instead, I think that ends up working better, because overall, high charge infantry will be able to deal with both cavalry when they aren't charged themselves, and they will be able to deal with the supporting spears with relative ease, whereas the spears won't do as well against infantry. And so you might find the spears killing the cavalry relatively quick, but then the cavalry being ground down if you can't pull them out against axe warriors and Sayax warriors. So 2 pretty cool armies, very different, sword main line versus axe and Sayax main line. And nice to see dogs being used there. So thanks to thanks to Duck for sending the replay, and thanks to Panda and Duck for this great game. Quite enjoy that one. Strength and honor.